I'm going to talk about my Bloodborne experience. Coming into this game, I had only played very little of Dark Souls and Demon Souls, and I gave up on both of those. For some reason, I could never quite get into them, but Bloodborne was a different story. I was really concerned about the difficulty I'd heard so much about. But once I got into it, I got hooked very quickly. The difficulty, while it is true, it is a difficult game, for the most part it's a very fair difficulty, and it forces you to develop strategies to get around the difficulties. And while I am speaking about this, this was some false compilation footage of me playing. These are some of my successful boss attempts. I'm also going to have some individual boss attempts in some different videos later that I think are worth talking about, specifically, but this is just some of the others. Really, what it amounts to is this game has immersion like very few games I've ever played before. Most everything is done within the game. The story is conveyed in the environments, in some of the characters you talk to, the notes you read, just different things you come across. There's very few cutscenes, and really no cutscenes that come out right out and tell you things about the story, which I appreciated because this game keeps you involved constantly. Very rarely are you ever pulled out of the experience. And that's the mark of a really well-designed game. Speaking of design, some of the best level design I have ever seen in any game. It really, just the way it all intertwines, all the areas do. Sometimes you'll open a shortcut and you'll be surprised, it leads back to a lamp, which is a checkpoint, through a path that you never expected. Or sometimes you'll get through an area and you'll go into another area by opening a door that was locked from the other side, and you'll go from that area into an area that maybe you had been to before, but you didn't know about that particular entrance that went into that area. So all kinds of things like that. And while I'm showcasing the boss battles in these videos, because it's the easiest thing to showcase, there's really so much more to it than that. For one thing, the environments you explore are so detailed. There's so much going on, so many hidden items and things, and I'm sure in the time I played this, I missed out on quite a bit. But I was very satisfied, ultimately, even though I probably did miss out on some things. I completed every area except for the Nightmare Frontier, which is really the only area in the game that I felt like is really poorly designed, very hard on the eyes, really annoying enemies. Just didn't care for it and gave up on it. So I did not defeat Amygdala because I didn't go through that, didn't get all the way through that area. I also did not defeat the hidden boss at the end, the Bloodborne Presence, I think is what it's called. Apparently I didn't do something right to get access to that boss, but I thought I had, but I didn't. But that's okay, because I was very satisfied with how it ended in the final boss, and I'll have another video on that boss fight specifically later on. But anyway, other than that, I defeated every other boss. The one you're seeing right now, Dark Beast Carl, is probably one of the more fun boss battles. I think the character design is just awesome, and I had a lot of fun. My philosophy with this game was to just survive however possible, even though it's classified as a role-playing game, action role-playing game with adventure elements. Really, because of the design of the world and the characters and the intensity of it, and how that, death matters in this game because you end up losing your experience points you've gained. It's also, in a way, like a survival horror game. And so I approached it that way in that, for example, in this battle, I'm using a computer co-op partners to do this battle. I played this game entirely offline, and I decided, you know, if the game offers me an opportunity to have a co-op partner controlled by the computer, that I would take it. This particular one, I believe the reason that I got this partner, and I could be wrong about this, but I did join a group called the League, which is some Confederates, and this may not be one of them, but I know one of the other boss battles, and I think it was the Shadow of Norman video you saw at the beginning. I believe that was one of the Confederates that helped me fight that battle, because I had joined the League. So there's interesting things like that about the game. As you can tell in all these videos, I am exclusively using the Hunter Axe against the boss. So this is the weapon I started the game with, and I upgraded it eventually. By the time I got to the end of the game, I had it upgraded to plus 10, which is, you know, the as high as you can upgrade any weapon. And I tried a few other weapons, like I tried Ludwig's Holy Blade, and I tried the Kirk Hammer, but really nothing to me ever approached the versatility and the power of the Hunter Axe, and I had gotten pretty good with it towards the end of the game, and so trying to switch at that point, I really wasn't nearly as good with the other weapons. By the time I got to the end of the game, defeated Gurman, I had played 45 hours, and it took me exactly a month from the time I started the game to complete it. I did not do any of the, I think they're called Chalice dungeon runs. I had no interest in that. And I know a lot of people, you know, they'll go back and play New Game Plus and things, and they'll get a lot more than 45 hours out of it. But I felt that the experience was just so satisfying by the time I got to the end, and I was kind of exhausted from playing it because of the intensity and the difficulty. And maybe for regular Souls game players that wouldn't be an issue, but for me it really was, being new to this kind of game. And just really being pleasantly surprised at how much I enjoyed this. I was concerned that the frustration level would be too high, but I did hit a wall in several instances. For example, against Vicar Amelia, which I have a video on that battle. And then I also hit a wall when I fought Rom, the Vacuous Spider. Those two really were the biggest walls for me in terms of having to overcome some frustration. And other than that, though, that was the two biggest walls. Other than that, you know, I did hit some points where the progress was slowed, but nothing that lasted for a very long time. I got past it fairly quickly. As you can see, I love to use that charged power attack with the Hunter Axe. It just does devastating damage. I got good with the timing and the distance that I need to start the wind-up, and that's one of the things that helped me against a lot of enemies. Just getting better and better with that weapon. And that's one of the things I love about this game is, and a lot of modern games don't do this very well, it forces you to get really good at playing it. Like, you know, you can level up all you want to, but if you don't develop some skill along the way, you're not going to be able to overcome the obstacles. Leveling up definitely makes things easier. Using co-op partner here obviously helps things, and also, you know, buffing the weapon like I did here with the bolt paper helps. You can do things to help, but you still have to be able to control the character, understand the movesets of the weapon you're using, and also, because another thing, and this is different from the combat portion, but you have to learn where to go. There is no map in this game. You have to figure out where the shortcuts are, where the paths lead, how everything interconnects, and it really forces you to pay attention to what you're doing. Particularly because at any given moment, an enemy could leap out from somewhere that you're not expecting and just destroy you. And there's always that intensity and that tension when playing the game. But as frustrating as it could get from time to time, it was always thrilling when you overcame an obstacle, particularly a really tough boss or a really tough section. the feeling of accomplishment. Very few games in my entire game playing history have given me the sense of accomplishment that this game did. I'm 35 years old. I've been playing games since I was a little kid in the 80s. I started with the NES, Mario and Zelda and all that, of course. And really, over all those years, this is probably one of the most satisfying games to finish. You feel like you've really accomplished something when you beat it, because you have. You can't halfway do it. You really have to go into it, develop strategies, execute those strategies to get through it. And because of that, I think it's probably going to go down for me as one of my favorite games of all time, because of the involvement, the way it immerses you in the experience. And games like that are rare, in my opinion. And I think probably this game, as I reflect back on it, it's probably one of the best gaming experiences I have ever had. And I'm glad I gave it a chance. If you're the kind of person who's not sure because maybe you've never really played any of the Souls games a whole lot, just know that even if you struggle with those, I think Bloodborne has enough differences. The pace of the game is faster. It encourages you to be aggressive because you can recover health by being aggressive. For example, there are no real shields in the game, and you have to get really good at dodging and things like that. Another thing about it is that I think the level design is more fair than Souls games, and I'm sure some people are going to disagree with me on that, but I feel like when you die at a boss, the way you can unlock shortcuts in this game to get back to the boss, it's a lot shorter routes, and you don't have to deal with nearly as many enemies on your way back to the boss, as I felt like you did in maybe some of the Souls games. I felt like there was some more frustration to have to just get back to the boss in some of the Souls games. With this one, for the most part, you could get back to that boss and try it again with minimal frustration. That really helped, particularly on really tough battles, which some of them were. This battle here, and I'm not even sure if I would have been able to win this battle without a co-op partner. I don't know. This enemy seemed to have so many hit points and a lot of devastating attacks. There was like a one-hit kill that it had that just, man, it got me a few times in the previous attempts. So I was really glad to get past that. I'm going to talk here for about 2 more minutes, and you're going to see another boss battle here, and then I'm going to wrap it up. I just want to say From Software is doing a great thing for the gaming industry, because they are giving people a different kind of gaming experience than what most games are able to provide. I mean, there's a lot of other good games, but it seems like From Software really has a handle on this type of game, and it's really nice and refreshing to see. But there's this option out there for people who want an extra challenge, who want to be engrossed in a foreboding environment. And really, I can't say enough about how hooked I was in this game. And this hasn't happened a long time with any game for me, I would go to bed at night thinking about, how am I going to get past this next section, or how am I going to deal with this boss that's giving me trouble. So really, just kudos to From Software, and also kudos for the publishers to have the guts to publish a game like this in the modern age, where games in general seem to be a lot more hand-holding, and people are used to that. But I think maybe that's why this game has had some success, and the Souls games, because it goes back to an era where there wasn't as much hand-holding, and so many games just tell you every little thing you should and shouldn't do. This game doesn't even really have objectives. You figure out what you can and can't do, and what you need to do to get through the game. That creates an immersion that's very different, unlike a lot of other modern games. I'm going to stop my commentary here, and you're going to see me finish off Martyr Logarius.